An important corollary of this focus on language as the window to legal epistemology is the central role of discourse to law and other sociocultural processes. Discourse literally means talk and text.
What
So,
is
so both talk and text are central to the practice of law. That is, in courtrooms, people talk, but they also write down laws and consult those laws or their commentaries. So when they say that the central role of discourse to law, they're talking about how talking and writing and reading, exchanging information verbally, that is central to the law. It's a really important part of the law.
perfect? Yeah.
Um, and a corollary is something that follows from or is closely connected to
Corollary.
something else in a logical way. So if there's a focus on language, an important corollary of that focus is that um, if language is important to legal epistemology, a logical corollary is that discourse is important to the law. So in both cases, you're talking about language. One of them is important to epistemology, that is how the law understands knowledge, but it's also just important to the law in general as a practice or a process. Implied that there's been a discussion before this sentence of language as important to or central to this idea of legal epistemology. Now, epistemology is a branch of philosophy, but it's also just used to talk about um, how we think we know stuff, how we reckon we know stuff. It's a theory of knowledge. So obviously, there's been a prior discussion that this paragraph is kind of coming after, where they've talked about how language is important to how the law understands knowledge and its own knowledge. And a corollary to that is that language is important to the law in general, which makes sense. If language is important to one aspect of the law, then language is also important to the law.
So I don't.
It's a theory of knowledge. So
A study of knowledge or theory of knowledge. For example, what is
yeah,
knowledge itself? Some people think
yeah,
that.
what is knowledge? So what counts as legal knowledge? So
Okay.
for example, if I say, you can't convict me of this crime um,
I didn't have
because
knowledge.
I was insane when I committed it.
So I didn't have
Um,
enough knowledge that I shouldn't do it. For example.
no, no, yes, that's right in that case. But the epistemological question is not whether I had enough knowledge. The epistemological question is how do you decide if someone was legally insane? How do you know? What counts as evidence? And similarly, if I were to say, you can't charge me with that crime because that crime is outside of this jurisdiction, how do you know what counts as the jurisdiction in this case? So there's questions of how we know in a legal setting that certain ideas apply or don't apply. What counts as evidence before the law as well? Who's allowed to say, I witnessed something? If you heard your friend say it to you, that doesn't count as witnessing. You go into the court and you say, uh, okay, I didn't see this happen, but my friend told me that the defendant ran that cat over with his car. Um, does that count as knowledge in the law?
So what?
It's the person who is accused.
Oh, defendant means the person who is accused. He might
Yeah,
go to the jail, for example.
that's right. Yeah,
Defendant. Okay. Why they call
yeah.
it defendant? Defendant is defend
It's
anyway.
it's the person who must defend
Defend
themselves
himself
or be defended
Be
against a charge,
against
an
the charge.
accusation.
Accusation.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Defendant. I hope
Um,
I would be the defendant. Okay.
yeah, no, you never want to be the defendant.
So what is the other guy that who is just bringing the accusation? What do you call that? I don't
It
know that.
it depends.
In
It
the
could be
movies, yeah.
the prosecution or
Prosecution.
or the prosecutor.
So the person who asks, okay, on this day, at this time, what were you doing at that night? Can you explain something like that? They will ask this stupid question. What do you call that guy?
Um, it could be the accuser.
The accuser. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It
Okay.
could be
Prosecutor.
Okay,
Okay, you
you
said.
said.
And
And
we
we
have
have
judge,
judge,
defendant,
defendant,
and
and
the
the
other
other
person.
person.
I
I
don't
yeah.
don't
remember
remember
the
the
name.
name.
There
There
was
was
a
a
special
special
name. I
name. I
forgot
forgot
that.
that.
So it could be the appellant as well.
Appellant.
This is
Yeah.
I think that's the person making an application under
Yeah.
the law.
Appellant. Against
Against
another
another
person
person,
to
to
accuse
accuse
another
another
person.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a person. Actually, no, an appellant actually is someone who applies to a higher court. So they're actually going, strictly speaking, it's someone who appeals rather than someone who accuses.
So
Um, yeah,
plaintiff. I
I
think
think
plaintiff.
plaintiff.
plaintiff, that's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
plaintiff.
Yeah.
so
The
the
plaintiff.
plaintiff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
watching
watching
a
a
movie.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
plaintiff
plaintiff
and
and
so
so
yeah,
yeah,
plaintiff
plaintiff
means
means
what?
what?
I
I
mean, the
mean, the
person
person
who
who
asks
asks
those
those
stupid.
stupid.
A plaintiff is a complainant. It's someone who makes a complaint legally against someone else. Um,
And
And
he
he
might
might
attend
attend
the
a
court.
court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, in some cases, I think not everyone is allowed to make every kind of legal complaint. So you can't necessarily just go to a court and accuse someone of murder. I think it's often it's often more about a complaint that someone has broken the law and they
Obviously,
owe
Obviously,
they
obviously.
owe you money.
Yeah.
It's a legal complaint about, yeah, strictly speaking, it's any kind of legal complaint, but you have certain, like, it would be very hard for me to accuse someone else of a major crime. That's something the police would do.
But
It's something you can be sued about. You can't accuse someone. Like, I can't just go around and say that everyone that I dislike is a murderer.
no,
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 that
that
is
is
a
a
big
big
thing.
thing.
But I
But I
mean,
mean,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
For
For
example,
example,
if you
if you
said,
said,
"Oh,
"Oh,
this
this
guy
guy
made a
made a
lot
lot
of
of
lies,"
lies,"
so
so
can
can
we
we
Yeah,
make
make
a
a
complaint
complaint
against it
against it
and
and
get
get
some
some
money?
money?
yeah. If I
Oh,
go
I
on
love
love
that.
that.
TV, if I go on TV and I say, "Oh, this professor is a liar," then that
Then
professor
he
He
can
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 sue
sue
you,
sue
you.
me
and he
and
He
can
can
also
get
get
sue
money.
money.
if it turns out he isn't a liar, if he can prove that he has expertise in a court, um, but it could backfire because if I say that this person is an idiot and then he comes to court and he shows the court that he's an idiot, then his case against me would be dismissed and I would get damages. Um,
No,
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 I would,
no.
no. If
so what I would do is I'd countersue. Yeah, so legitimate is
Legit.
is it would be an adjective. Um, but it's a judgment of the it's a judgment about the quality of something rather than a description of its quality. So in this case, we're talking about how certain ideas combine with the structure of language, linguistic structuring, um, to create powerful, often unconscious effects. So I
So,
guess it's about what sorts of structures might we be talking about in this case.
so can,
I mean, even the fact that in a court you might be labeled a defendant, rather than um, being labeled as a witness. So the language that gets attached to different categories has an effect on how we understand them, right? If someone ends up in a court and um, is is the accused or is a defendant, those are slightly different connotations. If you've been accused of something, um, then the listener thinks about what is the accusation. If you're a defendant, they're thinking about you as on the defensive. They're thinking about you and yourself. I think that's what they mean by linguistic structuring, like the way that language shapes our perceptions.
So, but you should. I mean that.
Right. So, like, if every time you talk about someone, you refer to them as a criminal, rather than an accused criminal, that has an effect on people's perception. Um, like you can
Can you
see
give
it
us
in.
two different examples that okay, as a defendant, I should use two different structures,
I
for
think a
example?
good example would be like political rhetoric. So, um, when Donald Trump talks about people from Latin America, he talks about them as criminals and rapists.
Really? I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah, he says,
I know he's crazy, but I didn't know that he's crazy enough to say.
criminal rapists are coming into our country. Um, he doesn't say, or he might call them illegal criminal rapists or illegal immigrants. Um, Instead of saying that they're asylum seekers or that they are fleeing persecution, or they're trying to escape to a better life. So each of those ways of describing those groups of people structures our reality for us. It says, you
Donald Trump is an idiot.
yeah, the first thing that you need to do in that case is you need to argue against the label that's been put on that person and then make your case for why they shouldn't be jailed or taken out of the country. Whereas if the first thing that you call them is, an innocent victim of political repression in another country, then you don't have to make any further argument about what category. You can start to say because they've escaped political repression, we should give them, you know, asylum here. We should give them a space to live here.
Yeah, they seek asylum for a reason. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
great, I got it. And